Hi, welcome to Unplugged with Eraldo and Daryn. Now, before we get started, Daryn, what do you think about the stress that's put on us when we live? Because I just moved to the city, so I feel a lot of that stress coming on.
I warned you.
I knew you warned me, but how do you deal with it? I'm curious.
Honestly, I take a lot of walks everywhere because I just feel like it's a good play to dispense energy. It doesn't cost any money. It does help my muscles. I like to keep moving. But honestly, the stress of just standing in New York City feels very pressure filled. And it's hard to kind of know how to help your body sort of through it. I mean, I'm 31, and some days I walk like I'm 41 because my back is hunched over or I have a backpack and I don't really know kind of how to handle it. But this is a good sort of sequitur into our guest. We have a lot of amazing guests today, so let's get actually started. Joining us is John Newton, the founder of Health Beyond Belief. After an awakening in his late 20s, John's ability to help people shifted tremendously. As he describes, quote, "The veil's lifted, revealing an experience of absolute oneness."
Now, John, thanks so much for stopping by today.
Thank
you. I guess let's talk about stress, right? We all have it. How do you properly manage it? Tell us.
Well, you know, people are running a program, and if they don't get to the root or the bottom of the program keeps running. So our stress, whether our body heals or not, chronic pain, even stuff that leads to addiction, quality of life, relationship stuff, all of it is part of the program. So where was the program formed? And most people they don't question it. They just go through life thinking it's normal to suffer. And I'm shocked as to how few people actually want to get to the root of it. And that's what we do, is we offer tools to help people, support them in kind of understanding there's physics to this stuff. It's not random if we have patterns in relationship or if we get an income level that we don't seem to chart out of. It just continues. It's cause and effect. So what's the cause? And so we look at the things in life that happened maybe that we carry still that weren't resolved. We also look at, it gets a little weird or woo-woo when you talk about it, but our lineage. Our ancestors experienced things and a lot of it wasn't resolved. And this stuff attaches to our DNA. And it's measurable, and science is corroborating this, and it's fascinating because we've been talking about it and many others have talked about it, but this is an active way of helping people with stress and all the things you're talking about. So.
There's a lot of things out there, I feel like, that at least claim to help stress or this and that. What makes your method different than anything else out there?
Well, there are a lot of good things. You talked about walking. Walking is great. Meditation's great. Mindfulness. You know, there's a lot of tools that we can access, even a therapist, you know, things like that. But if we don't get to the root, you know, if we don't get to the cause stuff, because we have beliefs running, as I said, we have a program that runs, and where did the program come from? So if our parents divorced when we were little, or we grew up in an environment that was stressful, or, you know, alcoholism in the family, things like that, we form beliefs or a point of view as a child, and that point of view sticks with us as an adult. You know, we think it's not there, but a lot of times we just put things under the rug or in the basement, and then we pretend like it's not there. But this is about like saying, hey, you know, this happened, let's clean it up, let's resolve it. And we don't have to relive trauma, that's not what I do. But it's giving people tools to be able to access and resolve these things that really affect their quality of life, every aspect of life. I mean, I do this work in hospitals, I do it in, you know, rehab facilities. I worked at the Betty Ford Center for 1.5 years in the pain management. And it's just so great to see that population because they feel helpless a lot of times. You know, they've tried everything.
Of course.
Opiates don't work for chronic pain. There's not one study. You know, acute pain, yes. Right. So we need to resolve what's deeper. Why is our body not healing? Why are we not releasing stress?
The addiction, right?
Yeah.
Why is it so difficult to cure an addiction? I mean...
Because people don't have access a lot of times to what's triggering or what's causing them to want to reach for the opiate or the alcohol or whatever the substance is. It could be food, sugar, whatever. And if they don't handle the triggers, right, there's also something we call Monday morning effect. In other words, people will use the addiction as a way of beating themselves up because they feel bad about themselves. But they felt bad about themselves before the addiction. So if you don't resolve that kind of stress pattern or that preload, if you will, then they just fall back into the same patterns. And their free will gets hijacked. I mean, most people don't even have full access to their free will. That's bizarre.
Yeah.
You started as an actor to make a living, and then you were doing this on the side, correct?
Yes, so I did start acting. I moved to New York when I was 19, started doing commercials and did theater. And then I started doing TV and films, and I made a good living, but it didn't fill my soul. Like it wasn't
missing, right?
Yeah, it was almost like what I was talking about earlier. Like the little boy in me felt like he wasn't enough, or you know, wanted attention, or you know, whatever that was. And so concurrently, I was working on myself because I actually had a lot of stress. I had a lot of stuff going on for me, and I was seeking answers. So I started to question. And that's often all it takes is we start to question reality, like The Truman Show, that movie.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he starts
Absolutely.
to question, and then the cracks in the veneer appear. And that's what happened with me. And that wake up that you guys were talking about earlier, it sounds kind of woo-woo when you hear it, but it was really a profound experience, and it caused me to see there's a whole nother path. So I did this helping people thing on the side, and I made a living acting, so I didn't charge. I started charging about 12 years ago and let go of the acting, and my whole life is transformed. I love what I do. It is such a gift to be able to help somebody, or see, two people that want to get a divorce and realize they've just been projecting their own stuff onto each other, and they don't relate.
Right.
And so we help them through their own individual stuff, and then they see each other for the first time. Or they part as friends, but it's not this,
Right.
crazy thing that we can see.
Right.
But yeah, I did both, and I loved it, but I didn't love the acting. It was more of like probably an addiction. It's like
Yeah, right.
the carrot.
It's a way to make money, just to support
It was a great way to
yourself.
make money, but also that great job's just around the corner.
Yeah, right.
And I was doing things like Melrose Place and stuff.
Right.
I'm not putting down Melrose Place. It was a great paycheck, but it wasn't, it
Not
wasn't
fulfilling.
Shakespeare.
Yeah,
It wasn't-
right.
Right.
That's fair. Well, I do feel a sense of calm being with you. I feel like
I do.
we could stay all day. But I wanted to ask you a little about letdown and sort of how that affects humanity, if you can go into that briefly.
Letdown is huge. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but everything truly is. In other words, we see the world through the lens that we carry. And when we were let down a lot, and most of us were, even our ancestors that went through World War I and II, and before that stuff happened, we see the world in a framework of letdown, so we start to look and expect it. So we go in for a raise, to ask for a raise, and we almost have a frequency in us that we don't deserve it or it's not going to happen. And then, of course, we sabotage or whatever happens. But letdown is huge. It affects, I would say, in the sense of the medical world even, it will affect the outcome of surgery and medications because we almost expect it. We almost look for it. And when people do that, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
But they don't even know they're doing it. It's almost unconscious in a way. So letdown is huge, and it affects relationships,
Self-sabotage.
Absolutely, that can be part of
exactly.
it, and just having these beliefs that kind of stay below the surface in the unconscious, and they affect us, in the sense of we'll continue to experience it until we don't. I like the physics aspect.
Right.
Let's address what led to letdown. What's the first letdown? Let's clean it up, and
Right,
then we
right,
don't
right.
have to carry it.
Start from the basics and.
Well,
John.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. This
Hey,
is
so
fun.
much.
Thank
I
you
feel
so
awesome. I
much.
feel
I'm glad you found your
spiritually empowered. I
calling
actually
in
really
life.
do.
Yeah, right, exactly.
All right. Thanks. Stay with us. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. Most reality shows are full of problems and emotional ups and downs. But one focuses on small town America and the struggles of mom and pop businesses trying to survive. Now, what started as a simple idea has taken off with thousands of entrepreneurs across the country vying for a chance at a $500,000 Main Street makeover, courtesy of Deluxe.
Season 4 is starting and featuring a new city and lessons for small business owners everywhere. Joining us today are the co-hosts of the show, Amanda Brinkman and Pennington, to give us the inside scoop.
Hi, Eraldo and Daryn.
Hey guys.
Now, this first season sort of revolves around a different type of town, a small town. What makes that town special to you?
So the town that we are featuring in season 4 of the Small Business Revolution Main Street is Searcy, Arkansas.
Yes.
So in our show, each season we revitalize a different small town's main street, and we do it through its small businesses. And Searcy, Arkansas is full of incredible entrepreneurs who are trying to really make a difference within their community and provide something unique to that town. And so we expect viewers are going to fall in love with Searcy, Arkansas just like we did, and the incredible businesses that make that town special.
Now, what is Small Business Revolution and why does Deluxe do the series?
So Deluxe started the Small Business Revolution because we love small businesses, and we believe wholeheartedly that not only was this country built on the backs of small businesses, but they are vital for a small town success and for large urban areas as well. And so what we will love to do is go in and walk alongside these small businesses and help them with the things that Deluxe does for over 4.5 million small businesses across the country. So we help them with things like their marketing, we help them with their finances, we invest in things like their physical improvements, but we really help give these small businesses the confidence so that they can get back to doing what they love about their business.
Ty, what did you find most interesting about Searcy, Arkansas?
I think for me, like, Searcy, Arkansas really has a charm. I mean, the minute you sort of show up in the town square, you see not only this older architecture, but there's this old pharmacy that just says, it screams like vintage American town. But it's the people, I think, that really stand out. The characters, the business owners, and I think what's really important about all of that is that, I mean, what this show really is doing is it's giving people hope. One, it's about the American dream, which is having your own business, but it's also showing them that it's possible. It's giving them the confidence and the tools they need to make it work. But there's a bigger picture here, which is really renovating the main streets in small towns America that have become sort of vacant over the years because of these big stores and these big chains. What I love seeing is the spirit and the energy coming back to these small towns and these main streets because the people that are investing in the real estate on those streets. So I think it's all of us investing in our communities that's going to make all of this work, and this is a show about that.
So Amanda, what is the biggest thing that most owners are missing that could help their business?
Most small businesses think that they have to wait till they get to a certain point in their business before they can invest in marketing. But the truth is most small businesses can't afford not to invest in their marketing. They really need to invest from the get-go in a great website, in a professional logo, and great consistent branding, staying in front of their customers with things like email marketing and social media. And that's why Deluxe provides that for small businesses, because so many entrepreneurs started their business because they love a certain product or a service, or they started their business for a different reason. And so we love helping them with those things so that they can focus on the places where they should be spending their time to continue to grow their business. So that's the number one thing that we see, is that businesses just don't necessarily understand either the latest trends in marketing or how to use marketing to grow their business. And so you see us focus on that within the show and really show what a difference that those marketing tools can make for a small business.
Ty and Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you want to nominate your favorite town for a chance to be featured in Season 5, just go to smallbusinessrevolution.org. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Joining us via Skype from Los Angeles is Ryan Foland, the co-author of the best-selling book, Ditch the Act. Ryan is a global keynote speaker, a national influencer, and the founder of Influence Tree, a personal branding accelerator, teaching people how to build their personal brand and grow their social media following.
Ryan is joining us to talk about the difference between vulnerability and authenticity, as well as shareable versus likable on social media. It's glad to have you on the show, Ryan.
Ahoy, it's great to be here. I mean, I'm virtually, but I feel like I'm right there with you.
You are. This is the beauty of technology, yes.
So, Ryan, tell us a little bit about the difference between vulnerability and weakness.
Well, oftentimes, sometimes we connect the two and we think that they're both the same, but they're actually very different. Weakness is coming from a spot with you're at a deficit. And when you're talking about vulnerability, it's really just opening yourself up. And Brene Brown talks about how being vulnerable is something that actually takes courage. So she argues that courage is just about the same thing as being vulnerable. It takes a lot to put yourself out there.
What's your relationship with this whole thing? Kind of how did you get started in doing it? And where did the idea come from?
Well, the idea came from an inciting incident where I thought I was going to be fired. And this is coming from a long stream of successfully failed startups. And each time that a company would grow and then it would fail, you have to reinvent yourself. And so I was stuck in this trap of growing, building, failing, starting again. And I found that the problem was I was putting myself behind the company. I was hiding behind the computer. And when I did put myself out there, I tried to put on the perfect lens. And I really tried to sort of put myself out there of how I thought people would want me to be seen. And I didn't get any traction. And as soon as I started to realize that the one thing that makes me unique is who I am, when I started to leave with that and started to be a bit more vulnerable, I allowed people to get to know me, which allowed them to like me. And that actually showed that I was a lot like them, which then builds trust and which gets people interested in what you're doing. So for me, it was a personal journey of trying to not necessarily keep up with the Joneses, but almost a modern day keep up with the Kardashians. But it just is exhausting. And the anxiety around trying to put your best foot forward always. But really, once I started to open up and what we call ditch the act, I just became comfortable in my own skin and just felt that what I was thinking was okay to be thinking. And that has really been the simple, plain advice that's hiding in plain sight that has taken me from nowhere to now knowing where I'm going and being excited about bringing people along in the journey.
It's incredible.
So Ryan, I understand that, because I've watched some of your videos, and I understand that when you were little, you were bullied a lot, right? Or you were not selected for the team, so to speak. I know. Tell us a little bit more about that, and how did you eventually evolve into what you are today?
Yeah, no, I think we all have our own ways that we might be bullied. And for me, I was sort of an outcast by the fact that I was a ginger with my freckles, and my parents are educators. So every summer we would leave and go to Catalina Island. And I still have crazy passion for the island and for sailing. But when you're a kid and you disappear for the summer and come back with more freckles, bleach blonde hair, and not the best basketball skills, it's a combination for disaster. I actually, it got so bad that I left my school to another school. And then that was even worse because now I was an outsider, and then essentially got bullied back into my other school. But what ended up helping me was martial arts and hockey. And I remember my dad, in our house, you're not allowed to lock the doors. And I had locked the door because I was so sad and I was crying. I was listening to Don't Worry, Be Happy on repeat. That was my therapy. So he breaks through the door and he sees me a total mess. And he's like, that's it. We need to get you involved into something that's just going to make you tough. And what karate did for me didn't necessarily make me tough. It made me more aware of how I'm communicating, because you communicate whether you're speaking or not. And so as soon as I started to gain that confidence, I started to gain that pride in myself. And then it didn't matter whether I had a basketball team choosing me or not. I was involved in sort of leading my own path. It ended up to where I ended up being senior class president in my high school. So I left all that behind as a matter of confidence. And really, this book teaches confidence in being yourself, being comfortable in your own skin. And today, when you scroll through Instagram, it's hard to not feel bad about yourself. You're like,
yeah,
what is going on? So it really helped me understand the importance of communication.
Speaking of Instagram, what a great story. But speaking of Instagram, what's the difference between shareable and likable?
So shareable is something that's a bit more involved. Liking is something that you can do from a distance. And one of the things that you might not realize is that when you're sharing something, there's a good chance that it's on brand for you. It's something that makes you look smarter. It's something that's on theme of the type of content that you actually create. Because when you share something, it goes into your feed. And when you like something, you're almost liking it from afar, and you don't have to take the responsibility of that being in the feed. So when you're talking about content like, hey, I just got another keynote, or I'm on a podcast, or look at me, I'm on the news, these are all things that are selfishly, they work for you, but they don't necessarily speak to other people. And in the book, we talk about how you can have these lower level exposures. Talk about when you lose your water bottle, or you join a chili competition and forget all of the sides to the chili, and all of the things that go wrong during the day. Some of those things are more shareable because people can relate to it. I like to tell people that, and it sounds harsh, I'm a nice guy, so take this with a grain of salt, but nobody cares about your story. Nobody cares about what you're posting about. But what they do care about is when they see themselves in your story. And if you're only sharing the highlight reel, that's hard for people to relate to. So if you want people to like and share, the idea is to really show your personal self and show more of the human side, because people can relate to being human. They can't always relate to those pictures that are like
So Ryan, I can't help but notice that wonderful book you have there on your side there. So please tell us a little bit about what Ditch the Act is all about.
Well, ditching the act is about not taking yourself seriously. Okay? The book is really a story of how you can get ahead by just being yourself. Now, it's not only amazing in your personal life, but especially in business, because if you think about it, a lot of times we have a different persona that we bring to work, right? We throw on the jacket. We're at home, maybe we're in sweats. When we talk with our friends, it's maybe a little bit different than our family. But these different personas end up being taxing on us. And you have these mixed messages. And what am I supposed to say? Oh, now I'm in this situation. But as soon as you ditch those acts and you can centralize on what you're all about, your whole self, the good, the bad, and your version of ugly, that's when you really can create connection. And in today's day and age, there are so many people claiming themselves as experts. It's like expert nation. Everybody's an expert in something. But the best way to stand out as a legitimate expert is to showcase your expertise. And that comes through all of the failed attempts and the things that didn't go wrong. So a good test of whether or not you're ditching the act is if you look at your online bio, which is probably the single most important digital asset that you have online. Is it only your highlight reel, or is it actually showing your underbelly? And is it showing things that maybe you're not really thinking you should share, but that's the thing that gets people to actually care and to relate to you. It's all about relatability, especially when there's so much noise right now.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on. I'm picking you for my sports team first next time, I promise. I've learned so much. Thank you so much for being
Words of wisdom.
here.
Thank you, Ryan. Take care now.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks.
Okay. All right, I am going to start using your tips straight away.
Stay with us. We'll be right back after the break.
We are back. Joining us is actress Catherine Urbanek. Catherine's credits include the independent political feature Courting Des Moines, playing Kelly Brown, campaign manager to a dark horse presidential candidate. With the Iowa caucuses coming up in February 2020, many different politicians with presidential hopes are visiting and campaigning Iowa often. This film gives you a glimpse into what really happens in the first day to hold a caucus.
Well, with the 2020 election being a huge focus, of course, a lot of people don't know what the Iowa caucuses are. So fill us in on what we can discover watching Courting Des Moines.
Well, what's really interesting is Courting Des Moines shows the race for the presidency right where it starts, which is in Iowa. And before I came on to do the film, I had no idea what the Iowa caucus was. I didn't know why it was important. I just kind of thought everybody just voted for president and that's what happened. But what's really interesting is why the film is called Courting Des Moines is because the candidates really essentially go to Iowa and they really court the voters because in the past, whoever wins Iowa in the primaries usually wins their party's nomination, and then usually goes on to be elected president. So there's this kind of, I feel like it's the first date of politics. You know, you're making the first impression, and it's really where it's very interactive and hands-on, which I think is really separates it from my experience with politics. I kind of always saw politics as very like other. It's not something I interact with on a daily basis. But in Iowa, the presidential candidates actually go and they meet with the voters and sit down and have a beer or a burger with the voters and talk about issues that matter to them. And I think it's kind of what makes it unique in terms of the American political process is the barriers come down and you just have to be a real person with other real people and be able to have a real conversation. And the cameras and the photographs and the makeup artists, they're not there. You're just present with the voters and talking to them about what really means a lot to them in the upcoming election. And if you can't be fake with that. If you're fake, people see right through it.
Right.
And that's that we have in the movie with some of the characters where they're putting on a show and they're trying too hard to win people over, and it just doesn't work. It falls flat on its face because it's not genuine. And Melissa Fitzgerald's character is very genuine, and I think that really comes through as opposed to the other candidates that kind of maybe have more experience or are more career politicians. Right. And so for her, it's very it's just very real.
So, Catherine, how did you get some of the politicians that are on the ticket to be a cameo host on this? Because I've seen this as a reel so many times, the highlight reel, and I'm telling you, all those politicians, you've actually interviewed a lot of them on the film. So tell us how you were able to get that done.
Well, our writer-director, Brent Roski, had a political talk show or show in Iowa called Roski on Politics. And so when the 2016 election, right before that happened, Brent was able to interview Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And then also the spirit in Iowa is very collaborative. So we were able to get congressmen and city councilmen and people that were like, oh, you're making a movie about the Iowa caucuses? Sure, I'll play myself. And it was really cool because former governor of Pennsylvania, Ed Rendell, plays the president in our film. So what's kind of interesting is we have real politicians like Lindsey Graham being Lindsey Graham, and then we have Ed Rendell playing President Ed Rendell. So it's this interesting blend of fiction and real politics. So that's kind of, it was great to see the enthusiasm that the politicians showed for, oh, you're making this movie about the American political process. Yes, I will be in it. And then also just Brent kind of, from his experience working on Roski on Politics, pulling from that as well.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, and it was a great speaking with you. Good luck in the movie, and I can't wait to see it.
I'm excited for Court in Des Moines.
Court in Des Moines, yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
Okay. Be sure to watch Court in Des Moines, now streaming on Amazon. Thanks again to all of our guests, and thanks to all of you at home for watching.
And remember, let's continue our conversation on social media. We look forward to hearing from you. Be sure to share with us topics and guests you would like to see on the show, and have a great weekend.
The preceding was sponsored by